Good afternoon, everybody. We're here to discuss a planning application which is reference number 2022/0719/TP, and the site is the former Line Cross Farm at Ors Road, Barrhead, East Renfrewshire. We have here today Councillor Betty Cunningham, Councillor Paul Edlin, Councillor myself, Jim McLean, John Burke, Julie Nicholl, Leslie Ann Burns, Karen Barry, Alan Pepler and Derek Scott, and online we have Joe McCaig. Mr Pepler, would you like to go through?
The Chair could ask if we could go over the first two items.
Oh, sorry, I'm not looking at the right bit. Do we have any declarations of interest or apologies for absence?
No. We do have an apology from Councillor Morrison, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's the, and then no declarations of interest. Mr Pepler, could you?
I can come in, Chair.
Yep, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. The Planning Applications Committee on the 14th of February requested that this application be continued for a site visit. Yes. This took place on the 29th of February. Just to refresh memories, I'll recap on the overall conclusion of the report, which is page 17 of the report of handling in your papers. In assessing the proposal, the principle of development at this location was found to be contrary to Policy 16 of NPF4 and Strategic Policy 1 and Policies M2.2 and SG1 of LDP2, as it is not anticipated nor planned for NLDP2 and goes beyond the capacity of Site SG1.5 as set out in Schedule 15 of LDP2. Notwithstanding the applicant's proposals for tree planting, the proposal to develop this elevated prominent site would result in a significant loss of established tree cover and would detract from the character and setting of the listed building, the setting of the country park and the character and visual amenity of the wider area. As such, the proposal is found to be contrary to Policies 7 and 14 in respect of impact on the listed building of NPF4 and contrary to Policies D1, D14 and D15 of LDP2. The proposal is also found to be contrary to Policies 4 and 20 of NPF4 and Policies D4 and D9 of LDP2, and further contrary to Policy M2.2 of LDP2 in respect of its detrimental impact on the Damstead Armley Country Park, loss of green network and the severance of a proposed key active travel route. Given the loss of a significant amount of locally significant tree cover, the proposal is contrary to the aims of Policy 6 of NPF4 and contrary to Policy D7 of LDP2 and further contrary to Policy 14 of NPF4 and Policies D1 and D14 and D15 of LDP2. The applicant has not provided on-site provision of affordable housing, and as such the proposal is contrary to Policy 16 of NPF4 and Policies M2.2 and SG2 of LDP2. In conclusion, the proposal is contrary to the terms of the development plan. There are no material considerations that indicate the application should not be refused. It is therefore recommended that the application is refused, and there are a number of 8 reasons attached on pages 18 and 19 of the report as to why. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr Nicholl. Alan, would you like to go through the application?
Yeah, I can open up the slides if you'd like to view them again. Yeah, okay. Just bear with me, I need to join the meeting first, thanks. I'll be brief. I think we can all remember the site. So the application site is outlined in red. The existing orange housing area you can see is existing. We viewed the site obviously from the central area around Lion Cross House, and we also viewed the site from further to the southeast, adjacent to the reservoir, so that we could see the key views. If you can see my cursor from this direction, and I think we saw the views quite successfully. And this is the site plan, which shows the site, the layout, together with the landscaping around the edge and the tree planting. And this plan, which I presented the last time as well, shows the tree loss, the green trees to be retained, the green blocked area is landscaping, and the red circles are the proposed tree loss. Hopefully that helps at the moment.
Thanks very much. I'd like to open up to the committee. Councillor Edlin.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if you want Mr. McCaig to speak first before we make our point.
Yeah. Yes, we can do. Mr. McCaig, would you like to add something?
Thank you, Chair. Yep, and good afternoon to the committee. I suppose from an education perspective, I would just like to highlight the potential issues with regards to the catchment school associated with the proposed site. The catchment area here is for Hillview Primary School, and as you're aware, there is already considerable residential development planning in place already for that particular school. Our projections show that the intake at the school and the projected capacity at the school moving forward over the next few years will indicate that will go above and exceed the optimum planning capacity of a role for a private school, which we deem to be 90% for a private school's capacity at any point in time. And we would expect that role will actually increase further based on the current projected pupil ratios that we'd expect to come out of the already approved residencies for that particular school's catchment area, and that would be expected to take place probably somewhere in the region of from August 26, August 27, where that particular school's role will increase considerably, and therefore the additionality of these proposed 39 residencies would impact upon that already high planned capacity for the school. Therefore, that could potentially result in children who would take up residence within that particular catchment area not being able to be accommodated at the school in terms of being provided with a place, and would therefore require redirection of those children to alternative schools within the area.
Thanks, Mr. McCaig. Paul, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Chair. I was quite amazed when I went to the site visit here, because what I saw was totally different from what I thought I would see based on the discussion before and the maps. I think we've got to take cognizance here of the economic benefits of 39 houses being built, the benefits to the neighbourhood, and quite frankly, looking at it, I thought it was actually quite an attractive development, because when you actually go down to the area by the dams and look up, you already see in the skyline other houses, so a few more houses are not going to make any difference. Now, I understand the objections in terms of the planners and what they've said, but we do have the ability to overrule these in certain cases. As far as the education objections are concerned, to me there is a certain flexibility in the education system. It's not going. These houses will take a couple of years to build, and it allows the education department time to expand. It's time to expand their system to cater for it or to plan around it. And I also think we have to be cognizant of this shortage of housing in Scotland. And I think I read somewhere, I may have this wrong, that the UK government have commissioned a report about this, and because of the severe shortage of housing in Scotland. And really, I think it's a particularly attractive development, and frankly, I can see no reason to not grant this in this particular area at this time. And that is my view. Unless I'm open to hear other discussions and be swayed by the arguments, but I really feel quite strongly that this development should go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Edlin. Councillor Cunningham.
planning for additional for the children getting into school. There have been weeks and weeks of people sitting, you know, for interviewing for a child can't get into school, the school that they're on, there's child that, you know, the Barhead schools or wherever, Eastwood. So it's been an ongoing story for years that they can't get into schools. So I want to make this an issue because it'll just be the same again. I'll be applying on a, you know, whatever. As far as the site goes, I think it's a fantastic site. Well laid out the way it was, right? And when I seen it, I thought it was great. The additional park made it much bigger, wider, fantastic. And, you know, I thought, oh, this is really good, you know, this is nice. So we looked at the site and we taken all aspects into it as far as it went. Thought it was first class housing there, first class. Just finished off what was on working down. I mean, it's just a completion of the site. That's the last bit that's left. Then we went over to our Sainsbury's Way to Darnley. And away up that country road, I was absolutely ill. But to look at what, away there, the outline, just the thing that, I went, what are we doing here? Are we here to look at the dam, or are we here to, but this was way in the distance, we were away. I said, oh no, right, doesn't even interfere with anything as far as it went, so I said no. So we come back, and I thought it was actually, and I think it was a first-class development, a first-class site. Houses are needed, whether they're bought or whether they're social rented, they are needed. And I think this is a good site, this is something that belongs to Barhead. And that's really how I felt, and I think it was an excellent site, well laid out and everything else. So I, for one, was quite taken on with it. And I don't know whether you get into say, Jan, or no.
Could I put a supplementary? Do you want me to? Do you want to speak first, then?
I think, kind of from my point of view, kind of looked long and hard at this. I realise we need to be careful that we are encroaching on the green belt, and we don't want to, especially the Dams to Darnley Park. We need to look long and hard because you don't want to open this up to further development further round. And I think I did quite like going to that other view from it, where you could see how far it would encroach down. But as Councillor Edlin mentioned, you can see the house is from that site, and it's a house of it's 39, so it's not a big development. And in regards to the education, on page 14 it said, should this proposal be approved, discussions would also be required with the Education Department to carefully and strategically plan the scheduling of the proposed dwellings to mitigate the impact, and the applicant have agreed to these development contribution requirements. Taking on to the aspect of the social housing, I know they haven't said they're giving any social housing, but I think that would have to be discussed further, whether they give a contribution to houses further down and where they're needed in Barhead, or whether they're up there. That's something that has to be, and we could put that in the condition, perhaps. But, you know, and kind of looking at the development whole, I would be in favour of passing it. Yeah. There was one thing I would just like to add. When we went up and looked at it, as we drove in, I think it was yourself, Alan, that mentioned the view from the left-hand side as we drove up the road. There was trees there, because that coming down then would mitigate. You would just see houses. If there was maybe a condition in place that we put more trees up that side to kind of mitigate that section of it from overlooking, you know, you would see trees rather than see houses. If that could maybe be put in, that was something I'd looked at. But that was kind of my take on the whole thing. Councillor Edlin, you have something to add?
I actually omitted to make my point about the about social housing, the contributions, etc. And my proviso was the same as yours, Chair, that there should be an agreed reasonable contribution towards social housing. If not, if the social housing cannot be built on the site.
Okay. Would you like to add a wee bit more about that, Nicola?
Just coming back on comments from members, In terms of the housing, the availability of housing land within the council area, through adopted Local Development Plan 2, our housing demand is met, notwithstanding occasionally windfall sites come forward and we address these on a case-by-case basis. We've set out in the report of handling, in terms of this particular site, whilst it does form part of the master plan, the intention always was that the farmsteading, which is the listed building, would contribute to the allocation, the housing allocation in that area. It was never the intention that it would extend beyond that, because all of the planning and the infrastructural planning, which is encompassed with our LDP2, formed part of that. It didn't form part of this application that we're considering today. But I note your comments, and you've obviously been to the site. The other aspect of our concern was, one of them was the visual amenity and the impact on the listed structures and the impact of the view from the country park. But you've seen that, we showed you that on the day. In terms of the affordable housing requirement and the provision for that, the policy does direct that be provided on site where possible. And you'll note from the report of handling that the principal strategy officer, Karen Barry, who's responsible for planning obligations and that's development contributions and affordable housing, has objected to the fact that there isn't provision on site. Notwithstanding, we have also said in the report of handling that if that is not possible, then we would seek a commuted sum, which is yet to be valued and agreed. So I don't know, Karen, it's probably not, if you want to add anything else beyond that, but that's the position in terms of, hopefully covers the comments you've made.
Okay. Well, would someone like to propose?
Yes, I move to grant.
Okay, seconded. Okay then, sorry, on you.
No,
I would approve as well. Mrs Nicholl, would you like to say something further?
Yep, just in terms of the decision, a legal agreement would be required to secure the development contributions and the affordable housing requirements. So planning permission would be subject to satisfactory conclusion of a legal agreement to secure the appropriate contributions. So that means that the planning permission would not be granted until the legal agreement has been agreed, finalised and registered. So my question is the committee minded to grant, subject to successful conclusion of a Section 75 agreement, to secure a commuted sum for delivery of affordable housing, development contributions, phasing of those development contributions to accommodate infrastructure requirements?
I'd be quite happy with that.
Could I just ask a question about that? Is the amount based on a formula that is by the planners, that is based on the criteria of the development, rather than, it's not an arbitrary formula that somebody can just make up? I presume there's a specific way of calculating what the contribution will be in this case, and it's worked out on a specific scientific basis rather than an arbitrary basis. On that basis, I'm happy to agree on.
So we have an affordable housing policy in place that deals with all of on-site provision requirements and commuted payments. So our policy is that all commuted sums are independently valued by the district valuer, and there is a long-standing, they do that in line with RICS guidance, national planning policy. So yes, but it's done on a site-specific basis. So the full plans and details of this site would then need to be sent off to the district valuer to get them to independently determine that. So there is an element, just to be clear, so there is an element here which is already dealt with. So the framework for the Barrhead South Master Plan sites, which you kind of see within the report, there's a requirement for on-site provision and a mix of commuted sums within this area. So an element of it is already dealt with through the developer contributions, and it would be the remainder of that would be dealt with by the additional commuted sum.
I believe there has been developers' contribution.
So the developer contribution element of it has been agreed with the applicant. It's just the affordable housing provision that hasn't been fully bottomed out with them at this stage, because the framework would have required on-site provision, which they are not happy to provide. So as an alternative to that, we would need to have discussions with the applicant around the affordable housing commuted sum as an alternative to them providing on-site provision. But the policy allows us to do that. So we would have those discussions, we would get the valuation done, and then we would tie that up by a Section 75 agreement.
Okay, that's fine, Betty. You okay with that?
I don't know. A few things kind of wriggle me with it, you know.
Basically, what?
You're saying it must be on site.
No, I'm saying because that element, they're not happy with providing the element on site.
Yeah.
So there was a requirement for on-site for sale units, on-site social rented units, and an element of a commuted sum. So the commuted sum, they've agreed to that with the developer contributions, but the on-site provision of social rented and the on-site affordable units for sale, they're not happy to provide. So as an alternative to that, the policy would allow us to switch those elements to a commuted payment.
To another area.
Another commuted payment, and then we would use that to provide affordable housing elsewhere within the Barrhead, Levern Valley area.
Aye, that's fine. Aye. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Barry. Mr. Pepper, would you like to?
Just briefly to say that we would seek to impose some standard planning conditions as well. I can very quickly run through them, and not any detail, but we'd be looking at phasing, excuse me, materials, fencing, walls, levels, tree protection, landscaping, further ecological survey, a standard site investigation contamination condition, some roads conditions, SUDS, drainage, archaeology, and sustainable design features. So these are all pretty standard. It's just that we've not had a chance to discuss these particularly with the applicant. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's fine. That's kind of, as you say, it's kind of standard, Mr. Pepper. So that's I'm quite happy with that. Okay. Yeah, I'm happy with that as well, especially with the environmental impact, as I mentioned earlier on, the kind of trees coming up the left-hand side, so it would block out the kind of view.
There were trees to be planted there.
There is, yeah.
200, some were 100 and some for the backdrop, you know.
So I'm quite happy with these conditions they put in. So we're all happy. So
okay.
Is that plan? That's it. Okay, agreed. Agreed.
Right.
I think that's everything, isn't it? Thank you very much for your attendance today, and we'll see you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.